Hello guys. Welcome to MK Recaps. Today we will be explaining an action movie called Olympus Has Fallen. The movie starts with a sparring session between the president and one of his security members, Mike, who punches him without holding back. Despite this, they have become friends. Later, the president gets ready for a fundraising ceremony, and Mike accompanies him along with the First Lady and their son Connor, who is reluctant to go. Connor is allowed to ride with Mike, and they all leave Camp David in the presidential entourage. In the midst of heavy snowfall that reduces visibility on the road, the presidential convoy is traveling in the Beast. Margaret, the First Lady, gifts her husband Benjamin his grandfather's watch as a Christmas present, and they share a romantic moment. However, while approaching a bridge, something falls on the car's hood, causing it to spin on the slippery ground and leave it hanging from the bridge. Margaret is bleeding heavily and disoriented, and two Secret Service officers hold on at the back as Mike tries to pull the president out of the jammed car. Without any other options, Mike cuts the president's safety belt and pulls him out of the car, dropping it to the ground with Margaret still inside. A witness, Connor, runs out of the car in shock. The Secret Service holds the president back to console and protect him. 18 months later, Mike is struggling with depression and has been reassigned to a desk job after being dropped from the presidential protection team. Mike meets with Jacobs, the Secret Service director, and requests to rejoin, but the president objects, as seeing Mike would be a constant reminder of the tragedy. Jacobs advises Mike to seek therapy, but he prefers to deal with it alone. The president holds a meeting to discuss how to handle the escalating situation with North Korea. The Speaker of the House suggests using military action to stop their missile tests and attacks on South Korea's borders, but the Secretary of Defense and the rest of the committee, including the president, oppose this idea to avoid a full-blown war. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of South Korea and his head of security, Mr. Parker, arrive at the White House to discuss North Korea's threats and their violation of U.S. policy in the region. As the Prime Minister of South Korea and his head of security meet with the U.S. President inside the White House, an unidentified aircraft approaches and is intercepted by two American fighter jets. But instead of identifying themselves, the aircraft shoots down the fighter jets. The Secret Service immediately escorts the President, the Prime Minister, and his team to the White House bunker while arming themselves and taking positions around the building. The police force redirects their efforts towards the White House as the aircraft fires upon innocent people in nearby parks and streets. The White House goes into full lockdown. Mike, who is sitting in his office, hears a commotion and upon looking out of the window, he observes an aircraft and realizes that there is trouble. The White House's anti-aircraft defense mechanism fires missiles at the aircraft, but they release flares, causing the missiles to explode without hitting the aircraft. The aircraft circles around the White House and shoots at the Secret Service personnel who had taken positions on the rooftop and outside. A USA fighter jet eventually arrives and launches a missile, causing it to free fall and crash on the ground, exploding inside the bunker. The president is informed that the aircraft has been taken down, and he becomes worried as his son, Connor, is missing. Outside the White House, Mike joins a group of foolish civilians taking photos, who fail to comprehend the danger they are in. Suddenly, a bus explodes, causing the civilians to panic and run away. The South Korean security team outside double-crosses the Americans and kills their agents. The attackers then throw smoke bombs inside the White House's compound and wear face masks. Due to the smoke, the Secret Service's visibility is impaired, and they are easily overwhelmed. Mike quickly grabs his gun and follows the attackers, taking out several men. An emergency response team gathers inside the Pentagon crisis room. The security team of the South Korean Prime Minister turns on the Americans and shoots their agents inside, taking the president hostage. President Benjamin is in disbelief as he realizes that Dave, the new Secret Service agent who replaced Mike, is a traitor who worked with the enemies and led them to the most important and secured room in the world. They detonate explosives, immobilizing the defenders as more Secret Service agents come out of the White House to defend it. Mike can only watch as the White House falls slowly but surely. When the machine gun fire dies down, the entrance is shot to pieces by an RPG. Mike quickly runs inside, but the two agents with him do not make it. By the time the military arrives, Olympus has already fallen. Snipers take positions on the rooftop, and soldiers surround the White House. As they wait for the command to enter, the Pentagon is contacted. The South Korean Prime Minister appears on the screen, but before he could say anything, he is shot in the head. The President of America is put at gunpoint, and they are ordered to stand down, or else their president will be next. When the Speaker of the House arrives at the Pentagon, he is immediately put under the protection of the Secret Service. He is named as the new acting President of the United States. The mastermind behind the attack is revealed to be Kong Yansik, a North Korean defector who believed that the attack was necessary to give Koreans a better life and unify North and South Korea, and taking control of the White House in just 13 minutes. The situation is tense as the military waits for orders to retake the White House, while the attackers hold the president hostage. Dave, the traitor Secret Service agent, reminds the president that they have leverage over him because his son is still missing. This frustrated a man named Mike, who is still alive and moving slowly through corridors filled with dead bodies. Upon reaching the CCTV monitor room, he attacks and kills a terrorist who was investigating a noise he heard. Mike takes the terrorist's gun and discovers a picture of Connor in his pocket. Next, he proceeds to the Oval Office and contacts the Pentagon, identifying himself as Jacobs, the Secret Service director. Though some officials are skeptical, they ultimately have no choice but to trust him when he warns against attacking. Kong reaches out to the Pentagon once again. Kong takes the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and slams his head on a chair, putting a knife to his neck and threatening to behead him. He demands the Cerberus code to access nuclear weapons, and when the chairman hesitates, Kong presses the knife even harder against his neck. Meanwhile, the Pentagon contacts Mike and reveals to him the situation. One of the Cerberus codes had been entered, leaving 2 codes in the possession of the terrorists who were holding the people with the remaining codes hostage. They knew that the president would never reveal his code unless his son was in their hands, and they threatened to harm him. Mike is given new instructions to find and safely deliver the president's son outside, as it was their only hope. While searching for Connor, Mike hears men approaching and quickly hides. When they enter the room, they find it empty and Mike is nowhere to be seen, as he had entered a secret passage between the walls. As he walks around, he comes across Connor hiding in the same passage. The scared boy hugs Mike in relief upon seeing him. One of the terrorists notices a gap where Mike had entered and they form a line and start shooting at the wall, while Mike is on the other side. Connor is being protected by Shield Connor as they both sprint to escape from the hail of bullets being fired at them by the terrorists. When they reach the basement, Mike directs Connor into a ventilation shaft, urging him to climb up to the surface undetected for his own safety. He then relays Connor's location to the Pentagon. Later, 2 soldiers manage to extract Connor from the compound unnoticed. Mike discovers that Kong had been hiding in the South Korean government and had been involved in several attacks, but Western powers had been unable to identify or capture him. Despite pressure from officials to launch a full-scale attack, Mike advises against it and instructs them to wait for his guidance. Meanwhile, Kong tries to demoralize Mike over the loudspeaker, reminding him of his failure to protect the First Lady. Kong becomes furious and orders Dave to finish off Mike once and for all. In a fit of rage, Kong unzips the Secretary of Defense's clothing, revealing that she had the code for the second server. She can barely stand up, and he realizes that she will be tortured to death if he does not intervene. In desperation, he orders her to give up the code, which she does. Meanwhile, Mike unexpectedly encounters Dave, who he had no idea was a traitor. Dave pretends to be scared and lights a cigarette while they talk. When Dave mentions Kong's name, Mike realizes that something is amiss. He then promised to spare his life if he revealed to Kong that he was dead. However, Mike ultimately betrayed him in the same way he had betrayed his country. The Pentagon dispatched 6 helicopters in secrecy, but the terrorists had already anticipated this and were prepared. Kong ordered his men to activate the advanced weapon located on the roof of the White House as soon as the helicopters were spotted. The weapon opened fire, causing 5 of the 6 helicopters to crash. Mike rushed to the roof and destroyed the weapon with an RPG, saving one of the helicopters. He demands that the 7th Fleet be recalled and a fueled helicopter be provided for his escape within an hour. He contacts the Pentagon, but they have given up hope and are willing to comply with the terrorists' demands to save the president's life. To Kong's surprise, Mike appears on the terrorist screen, and he promises to exact a terrible revenge on Kong and leak photos of his dead body to the press. Kong then takes the Secretary of Defense and releases her at the main entrance of the White House, where she walks barefoot on the ground littered with broken glass. Kong points his gun at the Secretary of Defense, ready to use her as an example, but Mike shoots at the terrorists from the stairs, giving the Secretary the chance to escape. She is rescued by the military. The Pentagon gives in to the terrorists' demands and provides a helicopter and recalls the 7th Fleet. The terrorists emerge wearing identical black overalls and covering their heads. As they enter the helicopter, it suddenly explodes before it can go far, leading to speculation that the president may have died. Kong overpowers the president despite the president's efforts till Mike steps in. Mike and Kong battle, but Mike is able to choke Kong on the ground until he is dead from a knife attack. Mike rushes to deactivate the nuclear time bomb with guidance from the Pentagon after realizing that it is still on. He successfully defuses the weapon with only 3 seconds left, carrying the president outdoors to be met by the soldiers and jubilant spectators. The audience is inspired as the American flag is raised in jubilation. Thanks for watching, guys. Let know in the comment what you think of this movie. Please like and subscribe to the channel to see more movie recaps.